Good evening. I'm Vicki Mackey with the Vergers Guild Nomination Committee, and I am here with Albie Bell, and he is one of our candidates running for the Board of Directors in September. Good evening, Albie, and welcome.
Thank you.
Albie, if you will, please tell us where you are from and what church you serve as verger.
So I am the head verger at Christ Church Cranbrook outside of Detroit, Michigan, in Bloomfield Hills, and have been the head verger for maybe 8 months now. As our head verger just left to go to seminary in Austin a couple weeks ago. So transition process completely completed.
Thank you so much. Well, let me get started by asking you a few questions so that we can get to know you a little better.
Sure.
Our first question is, what is your perspective on the annual conference, and do future conferences need to change in any way?
I would say that the conference needs to have appeal for the broader group of vergers. I think there's some of us that are going to go almost no matter what, that it's a a tight community, and it's a place for fellowship and worship with people that are passionate about it. But how do we draw in those vergers that are a little bit on the fringe? As I was talking to the 6 or 7 other vergers that are at Christ Church Cranbrook about the conference in San Diego, and saying, if you guys are interested, we should go. And I laid it all out for them. And some of it's a distance. Certainly Michigan to San Diego's got some miles and airfare between there. But then they were also thinking, well, okay, those little bits, how do you draw that in? So that, I think, is the key part on the appeal side, to have that fringe group that maybe they're not necessarily getting their training certificates that year, but are a little bit, not, maybe the fringe is the right word, but they're not like lifers, so to speak, of getting them in. But for me, the conference itself has a lot of value and time to be amongst and welcome with other vergers, and that part for me is great.
Thank you. A second question. What do you consider are your best skills and assets that you would bring to the board?
Being a listener and a patient individual. I will often absorb a lot of information and think about it and process it before being vocal about something, processing the information. So in some ways, it's good that it's like a 3-year cycle of get through one calendar year absorbing. Not that I would be silent the first year, but that understanding and learning and growing. So that on the interpersonal side, that's one thing. And then more on the sort of hard skill side, I'm a problem solver, is just, by nature, and my full-time job that's in the automotive industry. I do a lot of problem solving for some IT problems on some engineering topics and stuff like that. So it's sort of a broad background of how do I take a bunch of information in, process it, and listen to various inputs to say, all right, here's a good solution. So, thinking about some of the challenges of the guilds that we have, whether it's technology or things like that, I think it's a well-rounded background that will bring value for it.
Thank you. How would you go about getting more information available to reach the unrecognized, unacknowledged verger in the many churches and dioceses about the guild to become members?
Send them to England. That's actually where I learned about the guild. It was from a verger in England. I was a chaperone for my oldest son when he was on a choir tour to be was a chorister and went with the adult choir. I put my cassock in the bag just in case, like I needed it or whatnot. And the moment that I mentioned that I was one of the vergers at Christ Church Cranbrook, the head verger at the cathedral said, well, you need to verge your choir in for evensong every day, and I need another acolyte for the requiem service we're doing for the 650th anniversary of the death of the bishop that built the church, and you're going to do this. I mean, I had no expectation of feeling welcome whatsoever, or even that I would, be in such a position to do those things in such a great space. So that for me, that welcome feeling in not a weird place, but not where I was expecting to feel it into such a way is key. And I think we need to highlight that. And whether we sort of take over for a day some of the social media accounts on, maybe it's a diocese or a cathedral or something like that, to say, this is what vergers are doing in your area every single day. And the guild can be there to support you, to enhance your skills, to meet other vergers and exchange ideas. That could be interesting. And for me, going to England was that route. Maybe that's not going to work for everybody. I'm pretty sure the budget's not going to support that, but that feeling of welcome is that key part to bring other people to the guild regardless. And speaking of the training and conference in the right area certainly is important as well, to do that. But it's sort of pushing that feeling of welcome everywhere is sort of interesting, right?
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, our final question. How long have you been a verger, and what do you like most about being a verger?
I have been formally a verger for 6 years. And I say formally because I think the interactions I've had throughout all of my life sort of been guiding to me that way. Unbeknownst to me, until my mom mentioned it to me, that when she was kind enough to make me my cassock, and she's like, well, your godfather was a verger as well at Christ Church Cranbrook. I was like, huh, no kidding. Well, that's sort of interesting. So it's been, a long time building, but formally for 6 years. And the thing I like absolutely most, I mean, aside from making sure that the clergy have the right bulletin, for the 10 o'clock service and don't have the 8 o'clocks and things like that, is when we create that space for people that don't expect such a huge welcome. We had a funeral at Christ Church Cranbrook for a 12-year-old that had a serious genetic brain malformity that lived 12 years longer than he was supposed to. And the family situation was totally messy. And some people were Episcopalians, non-believers, and everybody in between on all denominations were there. And one of the people that was giving a reflection from the dad side of the family said, the moment that my car door was opened by all these folks in black cassocks, I immediately relaxed all of my worries and angst about what today was going to be like. Was the family's going to get along? And, was this space going to be the right space for this, important service? And she mentioned that during her remembrance. And I was like, we've done our job today. And that's all that today was meant to do. If all of these people felt that this was the right space for having the funeral, and it could have been anywhere in the city of Detroit. There were so many connections for downtown, and our rector said, have it here. The stepfather of the son was a deacon at our church and then ordained, and it was still in the diocese, but he said, hey, let's have the funeral here. This was our rector. And, it turned out that was the right space for that. So when we create that feeling of welcome for absolutely everybody, that was just awesome.
That you are so correct. Well, thank you, Albie. And thank you for your commitment to run for the board of directors and allowing us to get to know you a little better.
You're welcome.